Today I'm going to be dealing with the quadratic formula. So we know that the general form of a quadratic equation is given by, I'm having in this case ax squared plus bx plus c, which would give us a 0. So having known that the format is like this, we ensure that the coefficient of x squared is 1 and the sign in front of it is always a positive, and therefore we're going to divide throughout by a. So all over a divided by a divided by a divided by a. So I'm having x squared plus bx all over a plus c all over a is equals to 0. So having done that, now I take the c all over a beyond the equal sign. Therefore, x squared plus, I'm having bx all over a, which would be equals to negative c all over a. So having done so, the next thing is to make the left hand side a perfect square. So I'm going to have x plus, I'm going to have b all over 2a, put this, square this, plus a negative, I'm going to have b all over 2a, but this is going to be squared, which would be equals to negative c all over a. So having done so, then you come this side and take this the other side. I'm going to have x plus b all over 2a, square this, would be equals to negative c all over a, plus I'm going to have b squared all over, this is going to be 4a squared. After doing so, then we find that our LCM in this case would be 4a squared, and therefore x plus b all over 2a, this still remains squared, would be equals to, our overall LCM is 4a squared, and therefore I'm having 4a squared, of which 4a dividing here, I'm going to remain with just 4a. Therefore, this will be negative 4ac, of which plus, and therefore this would remain as b squared. So having done so, now if we look at this, the reason as to why I did this is because I'm having 4a squared under b squared, and therefore does not affect the b squared. And therefore, if I continue with this, you find that I come here to eliminate this root, and therefore if I root this side, I also have to root the other side. Therefore, the root of x plus b all over 2a, but remember the whole of this was in a bracket, is equals to, I'm going to have the root of the whole of this, negative 4ac, plus I'm having b squared all over 4a squared. The square cancels out because I'm having this root and this, let's say like the 2 here, up here, and therefore I'm going to have x plus b all over 2a, which would be equals to, I'm going to have, now the root remains the upper operation, I'm having negative 4ac, plus I'm having b squared, yes, divided by, now 4 has a square root, and therefore I'm going to have 2, yes, 2, and here I'm going to have a. But remember, the root of anything is either positive or negative, and therefore I come here and say that, let me take the b out of 2a the other side, and therefore x would be equals to, I'm going to have negative b all over 2a, positive or minus, I'm having a root of, now let me arrange this in a familiar way that everyone knows. Therefore I'm going to have, this is going to be b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Now if we notice here, the LCM is the same. we're having 2a, 2a, and therefore x would be equals to, I'm going to have negative b plus or minus a root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is how we get the quadratic formula. Now the next thing, let's learn how to use it by labeling, and we know that where would we find a, where would we find b, where would we find c, and what do they represent. Now suppose I have an equation of this kind, that this is example 1, that I have x squared minus x minus 2, and this is equals to 0, and you've been told to solve this using the quadratic formula. In this case, I'm going to say now the a, then b and c. Now these ones are coefficients, and c, a and b are coefficients, but c is a constant, of which if you're giving each of them, you take it by its sign, and therefore a is around here. If you remember the general, that's like the general form of the quadratic equation, we were having ax squared plus bx plus c, which was giving us a 0, and therefore that means that the a is the one that is in front of x squared, and therefore in front of x squared we are having 1, and in front of b, in front of x we are having negative 1. Yes, and c in this case would be negative 2. So they are the ones we insert into the quadratic formula to get the answers, and therefore I'm going to have x being equals to, let me first write the quadratic formula again. So this is going to be negative b positive minus root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So I'm going to have something that is going to be x equals to, I'm going to have this negative b, but b is already negative, so when I insert it here, it become a positive, and therefore this would be a 1 positive or minus root of, now b squared, b is negative 1 squared, that means that I'm going to have a 1, so minus 4 times a is 1, times c, which is negative 2, all over, I'm going to have something that is going to be 2 times a, 2 times 1, which is 2, and therefore x would be equals to, I'm going to have 1 or minus root of, I'm going to have, this is 1, so negative times negative, which is a positive, and here I'm going to have 4 times 2, which is 8. Yes, I'm going to have 8, so this is 8, positive 8, of which this is 1 plus 8 all over 2. In this case, I'm going to have x equals to 1 positive minus root of 9 all over 2, of which I'm going to have here x would be equals to 1 plus minus, I'm going to have here, this is going to be 3, because for example, if I have 4, the root of 4, we cannot say that this is only 2, because we know that positive 2 times positive 2 would get a 4 still, and a negative 2 times a negative 2 would still get a 4. So you find out of that, that's why the root of 4 would be equals to positive or minus 2 in this case. So that's why the root of 9 is positive or minus 3. So let's continue. So that means that this is all over 2. So x would be equals to, I'm going to have, this is now x for the first time, that's why we use words like either and or. So out of that, we are going to come here and say either x equals to, now let's start with the positive. So this is 1 plus 3 divided by 2. Yes, and this would give us 4 divided by 2, which would be 2. And therefore, and we say or x equals to, I'm having 1 minus 3 divided by 2, of which this would be equals to, I'm going to have, this is going to be negative 2 all over 2, giving us a negative 1 in this case. So this is how you use the quadratic formula. Let's try another example. Now, suppose we have such an example. So in this case, a would be equals to 5, and b would be equals to negative 6, and c would be equals to negative 2. So out of that, when you're working out, you find that x would be equals to negative b, positive or minus. We're having a root of, this is b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now let's substitute in. We know that this is going to be equals to, which is already negative, this would be a positive, and therefore this would be 6 in this case. So positive or minus root of, we're having now b squared, which is negative 6 squared, which would give me 36 in this case, minus 4 times a, of which a is 5, times c, which is negative 2, and therefore all over, I'm having 2 times a, of which a is 5. Now, so you find that this would be equals to, I'm having 6 plus or minus root of, I'm going to have, this is going to be 36, yes, minus, so 4 times 5, which is 20, 20 times 2, which is 40, but in this case it will be a plus 40. So all over, I'm having 10 in this case. Yes. So having done so, we know that this would be equals to, now let's work out. So this 6 positive or minus and the root, I'm having 36 plus this is 76 divided by 10, and therefore if the root of 76 would result into decimals, of which this would be equals to, I would have 6 plus or minus, let me take this back, so this would be 8.7178 all over, I'm having 10. So out of that, either x would be equals to 6 plus 8.7178 all over 10, of which in this case x would be equals to 1.4718 as the first value of x, and another value of x which would be equals to, would have 6 minus 8.7178 divided by 10, and therefore this would be equals to negative 0.2717. Let me round this to 4, and therefore this would be 8. So these are the two values of x, and therefore this is how we have overgone this problem. Let's try another example. Now let's try up this example, but for all the previous examples I've worked out, you just know that all the equations must be equals to 0, and therefore I hope you keep that in mind. So if we have this, and therefore we know that a would be equals to 2, and b would be equals to 11, and c would be equals to 6, and therefore x would be equals to negative b positive or minus root of, I'm having b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, of which in this case I'm going to have my b, which is 11, and therefore it will come negative 11 positive or minus root of, I'm having b squared, which would be 121 minus 4a, of which a is 2, times c, which is a 6 in this case, divided by, I'm going to have 2 times a, which is 2, and therefore I'm going to have something that would be equals to negative positive or minus root of, I'm going to have here 121 minus this 4 times 2, which is 8, or we say that 2 times 6, which is 12, and this would be 48, and therefore all over 4 in this case, and therefore we come here and say that this is going to be negative 11 positive or minus root of, we are going to have 121 minus 48, and this would give us 73 all over 4, and therefore we know that this would be equals to, we're going to have here that would be negative 11 positive or minus. Now instead of this, we know that, let's get the root of 73. Uh, 8.540, and then all over this would be 4. So out of that we are going to have something that would be equals to, I'm going to have here, so for the first value of x, of course, if I say either x, which would be equals to, I'm going to have here, this is going to be negative 11 plus 8.5440 divided by 4. Out of that, this would be equals to negative 0.6140 as our first x, and therefore our second x, which would come from r, this would be equals to, should have here negative 11 minus 8.5440 all over 4, and this would be equals to this would be equals to negative 4.886 in this case. So you find out that this formula is very precise and very easy to use, and therefore you find that when you're solving quadratic equations, you find that it's very easy and you can easily substitute for it. Therefore, let's try one more example. Now, suppose we have this example. Now, this one I've brought it in form of t, of which it is still okay because it is a quadratic equation still. So you find that out of that, since it obeys the general form of a quadratic equation, it is a quadratic equation. So out of that, we are going to say in this case, instead of x, we are going to use t. So that t, which would be equals to negative b positive or minus root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And therefore, in this case, our a is equals to 3. B is equals to negative 8, and C in this case would be equals to 4. And therefore, we know that we have now our constants or the coefficient. We have the constant and the coefficients, and therefore T would be equals to my negative B, but B is already negative, and therefore this would become positive 8, positive or minus root of, I'm going to have b squared, of which this would be 64, minus 4 times a, which this would be 3, times c, of which c in this case is 4. So all over 2 times a, which is 6. So having got that, I know that t would be equals to 8 plus or minus, I'm going to have, this would be 64, of which this is 12, and 12 times 4, this would be 48. So minus 48 all over 6. So having done so, therefore I know that this would be t equals to 8 plus or minus root of, I'm having something like 64 minus 48, of which I would have here 16 all over 6. But I know that I can get a root of 16, and therefore t would be equals to 8 plus or minus, I'm going to have, this would be 4 all over 6, of which I can divide through, and I remain with it. T is equals to by 2, this is 4, minus by 2, this would be 2, by 2, this would be 3. And therefore, either t is equals to, I'm going to have, this is going to be 4 plus 2 all over 3, of which this would be equals to, I'm going to have the 6 all over 3, which would give me a 2. Or t would be equals to, I would have here, this is going to be 4 minus 2 all over 3, which would give me a 2 out of 3, of which is a fraction, which is okay. They're all answers. So this is it for this video. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. See you next time.